My name is Kira Hawkinson, and I'm the Student Services Supervisor for Enrollment Management here at ISAP. I'm also the Student Services Officer for Spain and Portugal. This is what we're going to be covering today: culture and daily life, academic matters, health and safety before you go, and then keeping in touch with ISAP. Right, life in Portugal. So just a couple country facts to get us started. The population is about 10.5 million people. Portugal has a very diverse landscape ranging from mountainous regions in the north to flatter plains in the souths, and the country features a mix of rugged terrain, fertile valleys, and coastal plains and beaches. Portugal generally enjoys a very nice Mediterranean climate with mild, wet winters and warm, dry summers. The average annual temperature is around 17 degrees Celsius or 63 degrees Fahrenheit, so pretty nice. Frequently cited as one of Europe's most affordable cities with easy access to the rest of Europe. All right, just diving into Portuguese culture a little bit. Main language is Portuguese. The Portuguese are generally very warm and inviting people. Something to keep in mind, the Portuguese usually live at home. They're very close to their family, so they'll live at home until they get married. So many of your Portuguese friends at school will still be living at home. The Portuguese, like I said, highly value family, which you'll notice at large family gatherings and dinners. People generally don't move too far from the town or city where they grew up and typically stay close to an extended family network throughout the entire life. Over 80% of the population identifies as Catholic, and about 14% of the population does not identify with any religion. Right, daily life in Portugal. So their work hours are 40 hours per week, 8 hours per day, with 1 hour for lunch. So fairly standard. Monday to Friday, many small businesses and offices close for a lunch break, typically between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Banks generally close at 3 p.m. and other shops at 7 p.m. So just something to keep in mind. Supermarkets are typically open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., potentially staying open later in more tourist areas during the summer. For weekends, Saturdays, smaller shops often open only in the morning and then close around 1 p.m. And then many businesses are closed Saturday afternoon. So something to keep in mind if you're planning on doing any, shopping on the weekends. Be sure to go to those shops in the morning. For Sundays, most traditional shops are going to be closed, and then larger shopping malls and supermarkets typically remain open throughout the day. For weekend activities that you can take part in, you can explore the historical sites and vibrant neighborhoods, go relax at the beach, shop at street markets like Feira de Ladra. There's an example picture of it there at the bottom. Actually, I have been to one of these street markets that they have. It's kind of like a big flea market. So there's different vendors selling different things. Sometimes they're selling antiques. It's a really cool thing to take part in. So if you have a chance to do that throughout the semester, I highly recommend. And then enjoying the nightlife in Palo Alto. So for interpersonal relationships, greetings and gestures, the Portuguese are a little less conscious of personal space. They stand and speak a little bit more closely. People might place a hand on your back or around your waist while moving by and say "com licença" or "excuse me." And please excuse my Portuguese. I do not know Portuguese, so feel free to look up any of these words afterward just to make sure my pronunciation is okay, because I'm sure it's not the best. Typically, Portuguese friends greet each other and say goodbye with a kiss on each cheek, so don't be shocked if one of your Portuguese friends do that. A handshake is more appropriate for professional introductions. It is important to establish eye contact when speaking with someone. People tend to use a lot of eye contact in Portugal, so don't be thrown off by that if you're not really used to that. The Portuguese will often begin a conversation by asking about your well-being or relatives. It may be considered rude to go straight to the point of a conversation without first easing into the topic, especially if it's something around work or school. So just keep that in mind. General greetings to note, hola is this is versatile. Hello that can be used in most situations. There's oi, a more casual hi, often used with friends and familiar people. Allo primarily used when answering the phone. And then for time-based greetings, bom dia, good morning, used until midday, boa tarde, Tarde, tarde again. Please look up my pronunciation afterward. Good afternoon, used from midday to 6 p.m. And boa noite, good evening or good night, used from 6 p.m. onwards. It can also be used as a way to say goodbye. For housing, students will stay in modern residence halls located in the heart of Lisbon. Students will stay in a single room with a private bathroom. You can see an example in that top picture right there of what a room will look like. You'll have access to a full chef's kitchen available in a communal area, so you'll be able to cook your meals with other students. In that area, you're about approximately 2-minute walk to the tram stop, and then 15 to 20 minutes to campus by tram. So really easy to get to and from campus. Amenities within housing, Wi-Fi, they have planned social events for students, they have an on-site gym, on-site laundry, multimedia room, 24/7 reception desk. So a lot of amenities included within the housing. For meals and restaurants, meals are not included in direct fees, so students are responsible for budgeting meals. So typically, what we recommend is that you purchase groceries and cook meals in the residence hall, or purchase meals at a cafeteria on campus. That's probably the most economical option. Probably wouldn't recommend going to a restaurant every night, as that will get pretty expensive. For restaurant etiquette, tipping in Portugal is not mandatory, but it is appreciated for good service. While a 5 to 10% tip is customary for restaurants and taxis, is not expected in all situations, and rounding up the bill or leaving small change is also common. So a little bit different, especially for Americans who are used to kind of the 15 to 20% tip. Lisbon offers a variety of popular and traditional dishes, with seafood, meat, and pastries being prominent. Some popular seafood dishes are sardinas asadas, grilled sardines. So you'll see that sardines are a very big part of particularly Lisbon culture, but Portuguese culture as a whole. You'll see sardines on the menu at a lot of places, and then you'll also see it in their artwork as well. They have a lot of little sardines that you can purchase as like paintings or artwork and things like that. Popular meat dish, bifana, a simple sandwich featuring thinly sliced pork marinated in garlic wine and paprika. You can see an example of it there at the bottom. And then the pastel de nata. This is Lisbon's famous custard tart. It's there at the top, a picture there. It has a flaky pastry crust and a creamy filling. This is very popular, and you'll see it in like every cafe or pastry shop around Lisbon. All right, technology in Portugal. Internet Wi-Fi is pretty much widely available in Portugal as it is throughout the rest of Europe. Free Wi-Fi is available in public spaces like cafes and restaurants. You'll have Wi-Fi access in residence halls and on campus. The main cell companies in Portugal are Mio, Vodafone, and NOS. The country code is +351, and the outlet type that they use is type F. So just keep that in mind when packing, making sure that you have an adapter that will work for type F. Finances in Portugal, the currency is they use the euro. It's pretty affordable country as a whole. So like I mentioned earlier, one of the most affordable cities or countries in Europe. So definitely a great place for students. You can use both cash, so euros, and cards, Visa and MasterCard for payments. While cards are widely accepted in larger establishments, especially in tourist areas, cash is still commonly used, especially in like smaller towns for smaller purchases and at toll roads. Contactless payments are increasingly more common for small purchases, but might not still be everywhere quite yet. ATMs or multibanco are readily available and typically don't charge local fees, but it's important to work with your bank to choose a card that doesn't charge for international withdrawals and currency conversion. Avoid Euronet ATMs as they often charge a pretty high fee. Moving on to transportation. So there are so many different types of public transportation options available in Lisbon, like buses, metro, ferries, trams, and the funiculars. So you can see an example of the funiculars in the picture at the top. Lisbon is pretty well known for these. They're kind of ubiquitous with Lisbon. So often if you look up a picture of Lisbon, you'll see a picture of one of these kind of yellow funiculars. I would say this is a little bit more for tourists, but you can definitely still use them to get around. I would say the buses and metro are probably a little bit more common and what you'll probably use a little bit more. Two students will take the tram to campus to and from housing. Again, approximately 20 to 30 minutes to and from campus, which is pretty good. One thing I recommend is a Navigante card. This rechargeable card is a convenient way to pay for various forms of public transportation, including buses, trams, and the metro. They'll probably talk about this in orientation a little bit, but it's just good to keep in mind before you go. It's a great way to, not be spending a ton of money buying different cards and paying separately for using the bus and tram. It's good to have it all on one card, and usually is like a monthly fee, or you can add money to it, so definitely a more economical option. Sports and leisure. The most popular sport in Portugal is soccer or football. Each town has its own team and playing field, but the main rivals are Benfica, and Sporting and FC Porto. Soccer is a national obsession, and to truly understand Portuguese culture, one must cheer along for their favorite team. I'm sure once you go there, you'll learn from other students and staff who their favorite teams are and who you should or should not be rooting for. Due to the moderate climate, the Portuguese are very outdoor-oriented people. So popular sports and activities are golf, tennis, and basketball. Some water sports are surfing, sailing, windsurfing, swimming. It's a lot of coast all along Portugal, so definitely a lot of water sports that people take part in. And then other outdoor activities like hiking, cycling, and then horseback riding. So if you have the chance, definitely take part in one of these activities if you can throughout the semester. I'm not going to go over every single one of these, but these are the kind of main major holidays and vacation periods. So if you want, you can pause the video now and just kind of take note of all the different major holidays and vacation periods, but I'm going to move on. Moving on to culture shock. Culture shock is very real and can happen at any time during your study abroad program. Most students will go through this sort of honeymoon phase, we call it, where everything is super new and exciting. And oh my God, this is so awesome. I can't imagine ever wanting to leave. And then once you kind of get settled in, and start to get used to your surroundings, and then that's when it kind of maybe the anxiety and the homesickness starts to kick in, and it can be really difficult for students to kind of get over that, first initial hump. So what we recommend is reading through our culture shock handout for tips on how to prepare for culture shock. You can find this on our ISEP website, but really a lot of really good tips and resources available too. There's also plenty of resources online as well, for, how to handle culture shock if it does happen to you. It is really common. Don't feel bad if it does happen to you. It happens to most students when they're abroad, but the best thing you can do is just kind of be prepared and where to look for resources if you do need help. Some specific cultural things to Portugal to keep in mind. They have a more relaxed attitude towards time and informal gatherings like meetings or friends. More relaxed approach to work and a focus on work-life balance may be noticeable. This is definitely a really good note, especially for our American students who are maybe more used to having a lot of structure and being, go, 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 and on time for everything. That is not necessarily the case in Portugal and a lot of other parts in Europe. So just keep that in mind, that, people might not respond to your email immediately, or they might be a little late to a meeting or class or things like that. It's not that, and it shouldn't be seen as rude or lazy or anything like that. It's just a different way of living. And I highly recommend that you really get to know it and just embrace that way of living, because it's really great to learn how to slow down life a little bit and enjoy it a little bit more. People tend to eat dinner at much later and go out a lot later. Definitely something to keep in mind. Again, for American students, people tend to, the earliest they eat dinner is like 7, 8 o'clock, maybe 9 or later. And then people don't really go out to sort of bars and clubs until midnight or 1 hour later. So just something to keep in mind as things that happen a little bit later. in Portugal. I mentioned this earlier, but they have a little bit less personal space. Just something to keep in mind. Might be a little bit of a shock when people are just, talking to you a little bit more closely. You have to kind of, kiss on the cheek when you're saying goodbye. Obviously, if it's, something that makes you uncomfortable, you can always, voice those concerns, but it's something to be prepared for. Another thing to note, again, sorry to keep picking on Americans, but AC is not widely used everywhere, so just keep that in mind. A lot of places outside of the United States tend to use a lot of AC. So just kind of something you'll have to get used to, especially in those kind of warmer months. Our advice, think to yourself, it's not right or wrong, it's just different. It's just going to be a little bit different from what you're used to. It's a different culture, different language, it's a different group of people. So they're just, living their life a little bit differently from your own. It's not that it's right or wrong. It's just, a little bit different from your own. Remember, no one can influence an entire culture overnight, especially if there's things that you don't like or disagree with or confused by. I know it can be really frustrating, especially when you're first starting out. But again, keep in mind this is a totally different, country and culture from your own, and it's really important to understand and learn before you judge and voice those opinions and really learn from this new culture that you're experiencing. This is something I wish I had done when I studied abroad, but journal your experience and, talk about all the things that you're feeling, things that you notice, differences from your own culture. And then it's kind of cool to read through your journal entry earlier from the beginning of the study abroad program till the end and see kind of what you've learned and how it's different from your time abroad. Again, I am just going to have you pause the video here if you want to read through these reflections from past ISIP students. I'm not going to read through them, so if you want to read through them right now, you can pause the video. All right, moving on to academics. So higher education system at UCP or Universidade Católica Portuguesa, we're going to be studying UCP. The population at UCP is around 13,000 students. They have over 2,000 international students from over 100 countries. So it's definitely a very international campus, and you have the opportunity to not only meet local Portuguese students, but students from tons of different countries all over the world, which is really cool. UCP has 4 campuses. ISIP students will only study at the main Lisbon campus, so just keep that in mind. The academic year runs from early September to late June. So for fall semester, it's about early September to early September to late December. And then for the spring semester, it's early February to late June. Okay, the course enrollment process. So when completing the course list, students must provide 7 to 8 course offerings they are interested in taking. So a little bit more than what you'll probably end up, planning on taking. So your kind of main courses and some alternatives listed as well. Students can only enroll in a maximum of 2 business courses and usually enroll in about 2 to 3 human sciences courses. UCP will enroll students in all of their courses in their course list. Later, when the schedule is made available, UCP will unenroll students in 3 or 4 of their classes so they have a full course load. For fall, schedules for courses are made available in July and August. For spring, schedules for courses are made available in December. Students will be enrolled in courses by UCP staff at the time of registration, after courses schedules are released, and before the start of courses. Once course schedules are released, students will work with UCP staff to decide which specific courses they want to enroll in. UCP will provide feedback on their course list, and students will look at schedules and determine final enrollment. And then course enrollment changes are possible during their add drop period in the first few weeks of courses. Campus life, class sizes are generally about 20 to 25 students. Majority of courses are going to be pretty heavily lecture based, so it's really important that you're going to class and paying attention, taking good notes. Participation is required in the course, so definitely something to keep in mind. For office hours, UCP professors do not have office hours. Sometimes they do during the evaluation period. However, professors are mostly available through email or meeting with them 10 minutes before or 15 minutes after class. So definitely something to keep in mind. Proactively reach out to professors and classmates if you have questions or need extra help. Write to your ISEP host coordinator or academic advisor for general questions or if you're having trouble getting in contact with your professor. Social campus life, so popular student organizations. So they have student unions at UCP, like AESCH, the Student Association of Human Sciences. They also have their buddy programs, so they'll match you up with the local students. So you have the opportunity to practice your Portuguese and they can practice their English. It's definitely a really cool thing to be able to make a connection with a local student. And then ESN student network. I always recommend students studying in Europe to be a part of ESN. They are the largest student organization in Europe, and they work in a bunch of different countries and tons of cities all over the country. So, highly recommend as they do a lot of different events and activities throughout the semester. They plan trips that you can be a part of. They have a card that you can sign up for that gets you discounts to, public transportation, different museums, and things like that. So, I always highly recommend that students get involved with ESN if they're studying abroad in Europe. So, opportunities to socialize and make friends. Again, participate in the buddy program. The cafeteria or lunch break is a big time for socializing at the UCP campus. Socializing also takes place during breaks between courses. So definitely take that opportunity to, introduce yourself and get to know other students. And then local students enjoy interacting with international students. So take that opportunity to interact and learn from them. Right. Continuing with academics, exams, grades, and credits. So students will generally take 30 ECTS or the equivalent of 15 US credits per semester. The majority of courses are 6 ECTS or the equivalent of 3 US credits. Grading is typically on a 20-point scale, with 20 being excellent and 0 considered failing. 10 is typically marked as the pass-fail point. Many classes follow a lecture style of teaching, like I mentioned before, and are less discussion based. However, some lab courses offer a great amount of interaction with the professor. But I would say, again, the majority are going to be lecture style. Form and organization are very important in presenting written work. Check with a local student about correct form so that your assignments will be properly presented. You can also talk to your host coordinator or on-site, international staff about this. Your final grade is based on things like oral presentations, written assignments, occasionally a group project, and types of homework assignments outside the classroom, and then your final exam. So it is really important, again, that you attend class and keep up with your coursework. Can't stress that enough. All right, moving on to health and safety. All right, critical health and safety resources. Review the full health and safety presentation that was sent to you via email. I know it's not particularly exciting information, but it is really important and there is a reason why we provide it to students. So be sure that you're reading through that information and watching the health and safety presentation video. Our ISEP emergency line available 24/7 is right there. You can always write that down. This is, just keep in mind, for health and safety emergency situations, not general questions or concerns. For that, you can reach out to us just during our regular office hours. So your, student services officer or your ISEP host coordinator, home coordinator. Please only use this number for health and safety emergency situations. You're enrolled in the ISEP Health and Safety Program, so the Cultural Insurance Services International, or CISI. This is the health insurance that you are required to enroll in through ISEP. Access assistance, which is travel assistance, evacuation, repatriation insurance, that is through CISI. Your ISEP health and safety program covers students outside of their home country within the dates of enrollment listed on your ID card. For more information about local healthcare resources, that can be found in your health and safety tab of your ISEP dashboard and will be covered during the on-site orientation, but definitely take a look at that as it has resources on different clinics and hospitals that are available to you in Lisbon, your emergency contacts, if there's mental health resources available to you. So definitely take a look at that. Carefully review your CISI policy brochure and download the My CISI app on your phone. And then please review the insurance section of the ISEP website as well. So, health and safety, specifically in Portugal, the local emergency number is 112. So, for Americans, the equivalent of 911. Pickpocketing is very common in Portugal and a lot of big cities throughout Europe. So, be really mindful of your personal items. Maybe consider bringing a money belt with you. It's kind of like a fanny pack that you wear around your waist, and it's very thin, and you can put your money and stuff in it, and then, cover it with your shirt. If you go to the beach, be very cautious of the ocean. Tides and riptides can be very dangerous. The ocean is very strong, especially for those who did not grow up near a coast or the ocean. It's very important to be really conscious of that. I want to really stress that. Make sure you look both ways. Cars won't always respect people crossing crosswalks, so make sure you're really being careful when you're crossing the street. Common natural disasters that are in Portugal: wildfires, floods, and droughts. So definitely pay attention to your CISI app or any warnings from your host coordinator or from us for any of these, natural disasters that could take place while you're in Portugal. Print out and carry your health insurance ID card in your wallet at all times, available in your iStep account after you enroll. And save all medical documentation and receipts. The iStep Health and Safety Program will cover any medical costs above the $50 deductible. Typically, you have to pay up front and then are reimbursed later. So that's why it's really important to save all your medical documentation and receipts so you can be reimbursed. Know before you go, packing. I know this is a really big one. Do not overpack. Portugal has, a lot of amenities if you need it, if there's something that you forget. Not saying you want to buy everything, but just really try not to pack too much because you don't want to be lugging, 2, 3 huge suitcases around you with you, because you're definitely going to be, buying gifts and personal items and different things for yourself while you're abroad. So you want space for that. So try not to bring too much with you. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, they have a mild Mediterranean climate with warm, dry summers and mild, wet winters. So you probably won't need, a big, huge winter jacket, winter boots, and things like that. But just depends on what your needs are. Maybe bring a couple layers with you. Consider if you're going to be going, to the beach, or if you're going to be hiking or going to different areas. So just, consider all those different potential climates that you might be in. Definitely bring comfortable walking shoes. Lisbon is a very big walking city, and they have a lot of hills. From personal experience, you definitely want to have really comfortable walking shoes with you. Students in Portugal tend to dress pretty nice for class. That's not something, you're gonna get in trouble if you don't, but just kind of something to keep in mind if you want to kind of blend in a little bit. Making sure that you're having, some nice clothes with you. Nothing super fancy, but generally students will not wear like exercise or workout attire to class, or flip-flops, or, tennis shoes and things like that, or sneakers, generally, a little bit nicer than that. Make sure you bring beach attire. Definitely plenty of opportunities to go to the beach when you're in Portugal. Bring photos or items that remind you of home, just to kind of customize your room a little bit. Don't bring too much, but just, some items to make you feel at home and, a little bit less homesick, and just kind of personalize your space a little bit. For toiletries, Lisbon has, plenty of places where you can buy, toothpaste and toothbrush and shampoo and conditioner. But if there is a specific item that you can't get, outside of your home country, make sure that you bring enough with you to last your program, because I generally don't advise that students, have items shipped to them from abroad. That generally can take a really long time and be really expensive. For medications, this is something you definitely should talk to your doctor about before you go abroad. And if you can, get enough medication to last the entirety of your program. If you can't, you want to get as much information as you can about your medication before you go abroad. So like the generic name, chemical makeup, prescription, everything that you can about the medication. And then through CISI, the health insurance, you can also do a continuation or open a continuation of care case which you'll be put in contact with someone at CSI who can help you with getting your prescription filled while abroad. So definitely be thinking through that before you go. And then you can also verify with CISI if there are any common substances that are maybe banned. So there are some medications that might not be legal in Portugal that are legal in your home country. So just be sure you're thinking through that first. Review your resources, your country handbook, which is available in your ISEP account. Make sure you're reading through your entire ISEP acceptance package, which has more information about your program. Your pre-departure information and health and safety information tab have a lot of information about, preparing for your arrival, orientation, budgeting, and then, health and safety information as well for when you're abroad. We have the Before You Go Abroad webpage on our ISEP website, which has a lot of helpful information for travel information, financial information, a little bit more into medications, like I already discussed. We have our While You Are Abroad webpage, which goes over, like I mentioned earlier, tips for addressing culture shock. We have our Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility Abroad page. We have our Health and Safety and Risk Management page. So we have a ton of really helpful resources to look through to kind of help prepare for your time abroad. So if you haven't already, please take a look at those resources. There's a reason why we make them and spend so much time on them. We really want to make sure that students are prepared for their time abroad. And then always be sure to pay attention to announcements from your host university. Make sure you're checking your spam and junk folders to see if any emails accidentally go there. Sometimes that happens, so just be sure to check that periodically. Moving on to keeping in touch. For staying in touch, determine before you leave how you plan to stay in touch with your family and friends back home. We have tips for staying in touch on our website. Remember to contact your family upon your safe arrival. If you know you're not going to be able to contact them right away, make sure you let them know that in advance so they're not worrying about you. It's good to kind of stay in touch just so you can let them know what's going on and how you're enjoying your time abroad, because I definitely like to hear all of that information. And then you can connect with ISEP and then other ISEP students and share your story. You can feel free to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn at ISEP Study Abroad. We have a lot of times we'll have like photo contests or opportunities for you to share your experiences abroad or do Instagram takeovers or make videos, making sure you're tagging us when you're posting any videos or photos. We just love to see, how everyone's doing abroad. It really makes it all worth it for us. So definitely feel free to share, on our different pages, and also hashtag ISEP Study Abroad to share when you share your photos and updates so we can have the chance to see that. And that is it. I hope this information was helpful for you today. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to your student services officer, your host coordinator, and your home coordinator as we help prepare for your time abroad. But I hope you have safe travels and a wonderful time in Portugal.